Hey Yaga host, sorry about this being up late for a second week in a row, but here it is, week 7 of the GBA, and this week we are traveling up to Cleveland to take on the Escavaliers. And the Escavaliers kinda had, by general consensus, the worst draft out of anyone in the league, and they have not supplanted this, despite this being, we're getting to the midpoint of the season. There's been quite a bit of roster moving around. Teams have been getting some nice pickups. The Escavaliers have not had any nice pickups to add to their roster, unlike the real-life Cavaliers, so that's certainly fortunate for us. But neither of us are looking that good coming in. Myself coming in at 2-4, and Nexus has been struggling mightily at 1-5, but only a -9 differential. So in his 5 losses, he's only lost by I think an average of like 2.6 or something like that. So it hasn't been that bad. And despite having not a great team. That certainly doesn't mean we can take this lightly. This is definitely going to be a big swing game. One of the goals that I kind of have for myself is I want to get out of this bottom 3 along with Nexus and Kyle of the Chicago Grand Bulls. And if we lose this week, then we're going to end up with the same record. We'll both be 2-5. But if I can pull out a win, I'll go to 3-4, and he'll be at 1-6, and he'll be 2 games back, and I'll kind of put some distance and kind of move myself into the middle of the pack there for the playoff race. So that's why this game is really big for me, even though the records don't necessarily indicate it. It's going to mean a lot going forward. So as I mentioned, maybe not the most scary team, but it's definitely got some threats we have to prepare for, so let's take a look at those. As mentioned, we are playing NumbNexus, anime lover like myself, and he probably has the funniest videos of everyone in the GBA. They definitely make me laugh every week, so I definitely recommend going and checking those out, as well as his other stuff. I watched a couple of his other non-GBA videos, and he definitely played really well. It just has not translated to the GBA yet, so we'll see if that gets turned around this week. But anyway, we see Crobat, Rhyperior, Mienshao, Rotom Cut, Bisharp, and Slowbro, and not appearing are the mascot pick Escavalier, Zygarde, Moltres, Miltank, and Mega Gardevoir. I have a beef with Mega Gardevoir. Anyway, so some quick pickups from that. Miltank has been his most consistent user of Stealth Rock. He does have 2 things on this team that could use it, but doesn't seem too likely that he will, based on past use of those things. Crobat could definitely very well be packing Defog this week. He got burned really bad by entry hazards a few weeks ago against New Orleans, and definitely expecting that he will have Defog on Crobat since he decided to bring it. And without his own rocks, that's not going to be too bad an exchange at all. So on the bench this week, we've got Gothitelle. There's not really too much I want to trap. Cloyster, mostly because of Slowbro. It's going to wall the stab and have Regenerator, etc. Could potentially set up Calm Minds. Magneton, he does have 2 steals, but I felt really conflicted. HP Fire is probably not going to kill Escavalier without prior damage because he's likely going to run Assault Vest. And I kind of also want HP Ice with Scarf to deal with Zygarde, maybe, but can't have both, so decided to not have Magneton. Whimsicott honestly did not look at it too much this week. Maybe I should have, but it was on the bench. And then Gallade was actually on the team for quite a while. He was going to run Will-O-Wisp to get around some Sucker Punches from Bisharp. But ultimately, I was debating between Megazam and Slurpoff, our new pickup, for the last slot, and decided, I'm just going to drop Gallade and run them both. Because I do want to have some offense come in here, and I want some revenge kill potential with Megazam, and I want some potential sweep game-ending power with Slurpuff, so that's going to lead us into the team. And we're going to be running Subroost Zapdos, as we often do. Discharge over T-Bolt, because it's going to pick up, the same 2-hit KOs, etc., according to my calcs. And HP Ice over Heat Wave. As nice as that would be to get on Escavalier, had he brought it, I felt like Zapdos was pretty much kind of 100% wall. Escavalier, as well as Rotom Cut, which it would be a stronger hit on it with. As well as potentially Crobat, if it just has Brave Bird. So, I felt Zapdos was going to be a really solid pick, and it's actually going to be our lead momentarily, as it's going to match up all right against pretty much any one of those 6. We do have Subroost, which is going to be my answer to Rhyperior. But then we've got Suicune there. He's got Scald and Ice Beam, just his, standard 2 moves. And then Toxic, because I want to try to get that Slowbro Toxic, especially if it wants to set up Calm Minds. I'm not going to get swept by our Slowbro. We're going to get it Toxic, and it's going to eventually get whittled down. Not going to be able to sweep the entire team. And for the last move, it was kind of up in the air. Thought about maybe rest, just, some kind of recovery, but we don't have aromatherapy. So I don't really like the idea of that. Rest without sleep talk or aromatherapy, I don't like that at all. So I decided to go with Protect. You know, it synergizes well with Toxic and Leftovers as well. And also threw a couple special defense EVs in there. I forget at the moment what for, but oh, I think it was potentially for Moltres, probably some stuff that was not actually brought. Chansey is going to be running the same exact set, going to set up our Stealth Rock. The only user of Stealth Rock left on the team with the Steelix trade. So that's definitely going to be her role pretty much every week. You know, maybe one week we'll switch it up, but for now it's still working the same. I think we've brought the same Chansey every week, which I kind of feel bad for, but I don't think the only change we made was Sing against the Red Sox. We're bringing in the new addition, Slurpuff, and I wanted to have some sort of, you know, the threat of Slurpuff alone. I was hoping just by seeing it there, he would, you know, maybe be affected by that somehow. But I decided to actually follow through on the threat and run Belly Drum this week. I considered Calm Mind, but the big thing there was I didn't really want to run Jolly Max Speed to outspeed his Bisharp, and with the Calm Mindset, you kind of need to be able to take a hit to get your Unburden, and Slurpuff is not going to be taking an Iron Head from Bisharp, so I was just too afraid of that. And so I decided, you know, force my Citrus active, and let's just run Belly Drum. You know, we're definitely going to, you know, in-game and also pre-game, you know, make a note of things like I need to do this, 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 and this, and then Slurpuff should be able to come in for the sweep. So our fifth guy is going to be Technotop, still having Mach Punch. You know, he's right there adjacent to Bisharp, and that's mostly what he's going to be there for, to make sure we can, you know, Mach Punch, and that's going to completely wipe out Bisharp, especially if it's not, you know, Focus Sash with 4 times super effective stab Technician. But it's also running Bullet Bunch, which is there just for Mega Gardevoir. Otherwise, Mega Gardy can potentially, you know, wall it. It's going to just come into it at any time, not be threatened whatsoever. It can maybe set up Calm Minds, and that's going to be not so nice. So Bullet Punch will take a nice chunk out of it and make sure it can't stay in there for free. Also has Rapid Spin, but that's ultimately going to be useless in this matchup. So yeah, it looks like he is not going to bring Stealth Rock. Mega Zam, I think, running the same exact move set as last week with the sub and 3 attacks, Focus Blast, Psychic, and Shadow Ball. Is still running Modest, and however, shake up of the EVs considerably, having to run almost Modest max speed. I think we were able to save a little bit, still being able to outspeed Crobat as the Mega, which I emphasize as the Mega. That will pop up later on in the game, but I think it's pretty much going to cover it for our team preview. Let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, again, I like Zapdos' matchup against pretty much any of his 6, so we are going to lead out with our Titan, which is good because he's got a Walross over there for me to attack. So we're just going to sub this turn, and we're kind of PP stalling from the first turn of the game. Imagine that. You know, Stone Edge is a low PP move, and we're going to try to stall out of PP. He does Rock Polish, which tells me it's the most likely the same one he used against Fizzy Stardust in his only win, which means it probably has Weakness Policy, so we cannot just sling around HP Ice willy-nilly. We need to be aware of that. So right here, we're just going to sub again, and he shows Rock Blast. I did not even think about Rock Blast. What a great counter, knowing that I love to run Sub Roost Zapdos. And it's going to get around sub, definitely, and if all of them hit, it's going to be a dead Zapdos. So I really question how I played this. I probably put Zapdos' neck way too far on the line at the expense of some PP stall. But, you know, it is a low PP move still. It's got 10 instead of 5, which is, you know, 16 instead of 8. And I'm definitely, you know, tally marks are being done right now. But I have a sub in, and Zapdos doesn't have the best HP right now, so I kind of want to roost and get back up to usable HP, so that is what I do. Fortunately for me, he does miss a Rock Blast. You know, it still doesn't have perfect accuracy. It's better than Stone Edge, but it's not that much better. I think they did buff it this generation, or maybe that was in 5th, I'm not sure. But anyway, and now I'm in here with full HP on a sub, and I'm at full HP, and I have a sub. But I can't HP Ice because of Weakness Policy, and Discharge is stupid, and I'm at full HP, so, you know, I don't want to put up a sub again, so in case he misses, so I'm just going to stay in and roost. And now I'm at full HP again, and I've lost my sub, but I have also drained another PP, so I don't know for sure if he PP maxes or not. It's always safest, of course, to assume that he does. So, you know, I think at one point in this, I do record 10 uses of Rock Blast, but I definitely expect he still has some more. So right there was a weird turn where he earthquaked and I roosted, and it was just a completely wasted turn. And, I don't know what happened there. I severely doubt he just forgot about the whole faster earthquake versus a roost, and, you know, it's a common misconception. But anyway, so I'm back up at full HP once again after Rock Blast thankfully only hits 2 times. I'm pretty sure if it hits 5 times, I'm going to be dead. And so I should really be getting out of here now. And I think this turn I'm finally going to decide, alright, that's enough PP stalling. Let's get out of here and let's get into Chansey, who is going to take the hits all right with Eviolite and, you know, can S-Toss. At this point, I'm actually not sure, because it's technically a fighting type move, does it activate weakness policy? I'm pretty sure it doesn't, but the thought definitely crossed my mind. So I get Chansey in, and he poison jabs, and it gets the poison. And oh, thank goodness that went on Chansey, who can natural cure out instead of Zapdos. That would have been terrible. Short term, though, it is kind of bad because it means I can't survive this thing's attacks nearly as well. He is going to EQ. It does some considerable damage. And we are going to soft boil up and be back roughly where we were. You know, I could maybe stay in here and try to do that, but I feel like I'm losing more ground than I'm gaining. There's just, I just don't like it. So anyway, he Rock Blasts. Fortunately, only hits twice. And we do gain a little bit of ground, get back up to full, and then take some poison damage. So I'm guessing that Rock Blast, you know, over the more consistent Earthquake was on a prediction back into Zapdos. Fortunately, though, we just kind of stayed safe. And right here, he's able to drop in Bisharp. As if I don't soft boil, he's faster. He can 2-hit KO me. I would have loved to set up Stealth Rock there, but I did not. So anyway, Bisharp is in here. And now really bad things can happen. He gets Swords Dance. Obviously, I'm not going to stay in and lose Eviolite. That's absolutely the last thing I'm going to do. He won't actually kill me if he knocks me off, but it's way too early for me to just throw away Chansey's Eviolite and survivability already. Right now, Chansey can kind of wall Rhyperior and maybe drain off some PP. So we're going to go into Top Man, which is our check to it, and it does indeed Swords Dance. And now if he wants to stand and go for a hit, I'm pretty sure normally Sucker Punch does a good bit under 50%. I think he usually runs Jolly too. So I doubt he's going to want to stay in and take a Mach Punch, but I'm not going to risk it. I'm going to make a safe play and just go for Mach Punch. It would have been, you know, nice to get a nice Thief off on this thing with Technician, but I am not about to risk that whatsoever. As the Bumba Squad comes in, Slowbro, and Zapdos is at, I believe, at full HP, is where we got Zapdos too, so we can come in and definitely threaten it with, you know, Stab Electric, super effective, or we can go into Suicune, which I feel like would telegraph that I'm going to Toxic, but then again, I'm not sure he has fantastic switches into Suicune. Definitely taking it down to the wire, as we often do, and ultimately I do decide that Suicune's going to be the way to go. As he does Scald, and does pick up a Scald Burn, so that's actually kind of annoying because that means that I can't protect for Lefty's gain anymore, so I definitely need him Toxic as well. So that's what we're going to do. He does show Calm Mind. We did see Lefty's, of course, there, so he's not going to be Assault Vest, but, you know, we kind of did the main thing we needed to do, which was get him Toxic, and unfortunately now with the burn, Suicune's not going to be that useful against stuff he's got left. I do, however, want to keep it around. At the time, I don't think I mentioned this earlier. I think my calcs I think I may have ran my calcs on Rhyperior with max HP when he's clearly, you know, a more offensive one, probably going to be running max attack, max speed. And I'm pretty sure Scald was a guaranteed one at KO. It's a KO anyway, even with max HP. But I was just so afraid that weakness policy would, you know, he was going to survive. I wasn't going to get the burn, weakness policy, yada yada yada. You know, well, anyway, we'll see about that momentarily. Here I make a terrible play. I don't know why. Sub there, Rhyperior comes in. Now it can Rock Blast, and most likely take me out with. Probably can possibly take me out. Probably can't take me out with 3. It can probably take me out with 4 hits of Rock Blast, so this was terrible, but I am going to be faster this turn, though. He doesn't have Rock Polish up, so I am going to be able to do that. He is going to predict that and go for Earthquake, which will drain some of that PP. And, you know, Falzer is back up to almost full HP, so I've kind of rectified my mistake. I was definitely hitting myself for subbing that turn when I should have just roosted if I wanted to go for something defensive, but oh well. Oh yeah, that's right. The main reason for the sub there was scouting for Toxic in case he wanted to be Calm Mind with Toxic. Seems a stretch, but definitely would have crippled Dose. So I'm not gonna say it was a 100% bad play, but it was about a 75% plus bad play. So here, because of him having speed investment, possibly even being Jolly, I think, he's likely going to outspeed Chansey, and that means he's going to be able to pick up the KO because Chansey was not at full HP, and he got enough hits off that Rock Blast. So I could either sack Chansey here, but I need to set up Stealth Rock for that Mienshao Sash. So that's what I'm going to do here as I get a little bit of luck, and I guess that he goes for Earthquake. I don't think Poison Jab would have killed, and you know, Rock Blast would have been a risk. So I was definitely the safe play to make sure that Chansey either left or was able to or died. So can't fault him for that. But I want to keep Chansey around. He's got a couple of slower things, like namely Slowbro. The Chansey should be able to come in and, you know, get a soft boiled up on, maybe get some Stealth Rock up, which is the main objective. Poison Jab does not break the sub, and now I'm kind of in another like situation. I want to HP Ice, but I can't HP Ice because weakness policy, so I kind of have nothing to do, and I'm kind of just going to roost for some HP as he knocks out my sub with Poison Jab. Once again, we're here, and you know, he's Poison Jabbing over doing other stuff to kind of make sure that he doesn't lose too much in the PP war, because that's, you know, definitely what we're trying to do. If you notice by the game clock, we're almost, you know, halfway done with the allowed time, and it's still 6-6. That's what happens when you start PP stalling from the first turn of the game, I imagine. So, but anyway, Poison Jab is 2-hit KOing the subs, which is quite nice. I'm very pleased with this, but again, we can't use HP Ice. Here, however, I decide, you know what, I've got a sub, I'm gonna go ahead and activate this weakness policy, and, you know, since that's not breaking the sub, now the Poison Jabs will break the sub, and the main reason I do that here is because, again, of that, I'm pretty sure I mean, he could have actually been, you know, max HP, max speed. That's definitely still a possibility. But that definitely seems unlikely. And, yeah, now I believe we're gonna switch out to Suicune here to take this. He doesn't have a Rock Polish up. That's the big thing. He's come in, he's got his weakness policy, but he doesn't have Rock Polish. So, either way, Suicune should be able to come in here and hopefully, you know, it's got a decent amount of HP, hopefully takes some hits, and takes Rock Blast well enough. You know, he only got 2. If he had gotten 5, I likely would have died. But he only got 2, so awesome. And we're going to be in here to Scald. If he decides to switch out, that definitely changes the scenario of Zapdos versus Rhyperior now, as weakness policy has been used, and the policy is expired, so if he switches out, the policy is not going to come back. But I'm definitely going to go safe here. I am going to outspeed, so I actually did make sure that Suicune does outspeed the max speed Rhyperior. It does indeed, so we are just going to go immediately for Scald. Rotom Cut comes in, gets burned. You know, I'd kind of rather have Toxic on it, I guess. And we did see from there that the Rotom Cut had leftovers, and that's very good to find out. That means it's not going to be Trick Scarf, and which could really mess stuff up. I'm now much more confident about Zapdos' ability to take it on, and at this point, I think we probably could just let Gregor die. He forced Rhyperior out. Rhyperior no longer has weakness policy, so I feel alright, but we are, however, going to go into our bird, which he's going to immediately Volt Switch out, which honestly is kind of fine, because again, I don't mind having Zapdos in against really anything. So here's this thing, which if it's like Adamant Life Orb, will be able to knock me out, but I know he generally likes to run Life Orb on the Bisharp and Focus Sash on the Mienshao. So because of that, I'm just going to expect I'm going to survive this, and this is this is the definition of a risky play. I'm going to discharge, break the Sash, and, you know, take it down to hopefully to where Regenerator is going to take a couple Regenerators at the very least to get him up, and hope to live the Stone Edge. I do, and just hope for the paralysis, and we get a paralysis. So this is gigantic. this is the difference between a dead Zapdos and, you know, 70, 60-ish% damage on the Mienshao versus 70 to 60% damage on the Mienshao, and Zapdos getting to pull a Roost right here, which is what we get to do. So not gonna, you know, even try to make excuses for that one. That was a gigantic risk I took, 30% chance that Zapdos survives, and we get into a really good spot. And because of that paralysis and getting the Roost up, I definitely feel like I'm in the driver's seat now. This Rhyperior, again, does not have weakness policy, so we should be able to 2-hit kill with HP Ice. Once again, I get really ballsy, and he doesn't hit more than 2. I know Rock Blast does have a more tendency to only hit 2 or 3 times, so there is that. But here, just decide, let's go ahead and take this Rhyperior out. Falzer's at 84 after the leftovers gain, which is not really where I would like him to be, but because of the Mienshao being paralyzed, there are now more things that he can roost up on and be good to go. So he's thinking about what to send in, and he is going to send in Bisharp, which definitely seems to be the best thing to me. And he's most likely just going to go knockoff here, and I believe because he's going to be running max speed and I have no speed, he's actually going to outspeed. I doubt he'll Sucker Punch. I'm pretty sure it's just going to be a knockoff, and so I just switch into Gregor to sacrifice it, and that is indeed what he does. And so Gregor goes down. I do get to confirm that he is Life Orb, so here there's no way he's staying in, right? So I could Thief predicting Slowbro, or I could just again go for the safe Mach Punch. He doesn't have Sword Stance up this time, so I'm more inclined to go for Thief on this move selection. And so I think that is probably what we're gonna do. And that happened again. So it's 5-5. We're 40 minutes into the game. Even though, you know, both of us have only one poke down, you know, it's not going to be as simple as just let's just rematch 5-on-5, because there's varying HPs. There's certainly PP consumption has been, well, I guess Rhyperior's dead, so that's less of a concern. But there's too much. We can't recreate this. So this is that bad situation. You know, last week, me and John were able to work together and, you know, able to recreate that scenario. There's not going to be any recreating this. And we actually did DC during the team preview, oddly enough. Probably a bad sign of things to come. And so, yeah, I felt like I was in the lead, and now we've DC'd. And if you guys know a thing about rematches, as we decided the only way we're going to be able to do this, you know, I forget what the actual, if I could look them up certainly and remember them, but I'm pretty sure it's either, there is no tie in the GBA because it's kind of like a double win in some circumstances. So, you know, either we get to rematch it somehow, or we have to take a double game loss, which technically would be preferable to losing the game because of, you know, standings. But that's just absolutely stupid. You know, that means we have no game to post, and nobody wants to see that. That's you know, not only a loss for both of us, that's a loss for the fans. So that's definitely not what we want. And it looks like our best option is going to be to just start fresh. I decided, you know what, I need to do some investigation on this internet. He mentioned it was from my end. I actually don't know how that works, how you can tell, so I'm going to be looking into that. Going to be doing some investigations onto that for next week's game, certainly. But so, once again, even though I hate Showdown, we're going to get bailed out and play the game on Showdown, so it's going to be a fresh start. However, we are going to keep the same exact things. We're not going to do the same moves. We are going to keep same leads, same moves, items, all that good stuff. So it's going to be the same exact teams, which makes sense since this was played Friday night, and we're going to be coming back Saturday night to play this. So you know, there's not going to be much time in between. So you know, there's not really a lot of opportunity for us to, you know, think of new stuff. So it's just going to be a fresh start from the top. No same moves, but same items and everything is what we agreed upon. So let's go ahead and cut to it. Alright, since we are bringing the same teams before we go into the second game, which is going to be a fresh start, I figured it would be a good idea to compile all of the information that we gleaned from the first game. So it's going to be Crobat. I didn't see it at all. I don't know what it's going to do. I assume still Defog, but I don't know. Rhyperior, we know a lot of info about since that's the thing that was probably in the most. We got its complete moveset. It's held item, and it's most likely going to be running, you know, max speed, if not very high speed anyway. Mienshao, the only move we saw was Stone Edge. I'm just going to assume that it's sashed based on not having Life Orb recoil. Rotom Cut only used Volt Switch, but we did see it was leftovers. That's a big info pickup, so we know that Zapdos is going to be safe against it from Trick. Bisharp only used Swords Dance and Knockoff, but of course, we can probably predict the rest of the set's going to be Sucker Punch and Iron Head most likely. We did see Life Orb. Slowbro, I don't have the moves on screen, but we saw what we saw, and we saw lefties, and my guess is that it's going to not have Toxic. We had that play where I subbed, and I really should have roosted. That was there to scout for Toxic. And I'm just going to assume it doesn't have Toxic, which makes sense because you're going to have Calm Mind, Slack Off, and then you probably want 2 attacks. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into the actual game on Showdown. Alright, so here we go with the game that counts. And we actually had some difficulties getting this one set up. As the first game we attempted, immediately switched into Suicune, who proceeded to get knocked out in 3 hits of Rock Blast. And we figured out that whoops, his Rhyperior, he forgot to set to level 50. Again, we're trying to level 50 all to keep it as accurate and not have to change EVs, etc. to adjust for being level 100. Then we tried to do level 50 with the OU rules, which, because I guess Pawniard evolves at 52, apparently Showdown enforces that. So we thought we were going to have to do level 100, but I thought back and remembered that last week, John and I, when we had to use Showdown, we did a custom game, and that was able to allow things to happen, and that is indeed what we ended up doing. I think the first game, when we tried that, Rhyperior straight up missed the Rock Blast, so we just rematched because, he hit the first one on the first, even though we were, doing new moves, he still did hit the first one on the first attempt, despite being, the wrong level. So we certainly just rematched for that. That would be a terrible thing to start out with. So anyway. So here we go. I probably would have kept the same lead even if we could have changed leads, but this time I'm just going to go immediately out into Suicune and see how much he takes from Rock Blast this time that it hits, and get a little bit of luck still, though, in that it only hits 2 times. So right now I still have that erroneous calc. I'm kicking myself so bad for doing a bad calc. He still very well could have had the max HP, but I decided, I'm just going to Toxic right here, which isn't a bad play anyway, as of course Rotom Cut ends up coming in. With getting Toxic on the Rhyperior, it's also going to make it easier to stall out. That ends up being the route we decide to go. It's going to allow Chansey and Zapdos to deal with it pretty much easily, so as well as be decent against anything that comes in. So here we're just going to protect, get back up to almost full HP, as well as get a little bit more damage on this Rotom Cut, or Rotom Mo. I think Rotom Cut was the Japanese name, and Mo is the US name, but it's kind of stuck. So anyway, we're just going to go immediately into Zapdos, which is going to take not too much from this Volt Switch. Takes 25%, so there's, but it only says 76%. So there's a chance we could actually have a sub survive one of those. That's worth noting for the future. But Rhyperior comes right back in, and I don't want to do the same play. I don't want to go back into Suicune, because out of that exchange, I've kind of done nothing to him except get that Rotom Toxic. And I've lost a little bit of HP on Zapdos, and I'm going to lose more HP on Suicune. So I decided to change it up and go into Chansey this time, which he gets a crit Rock Blast on the middle one, but that's certainly better than it hitting 5 times. So anyway, here I decide to wimp out and soft boiled, because if I don't, he's going to be able to 2-hit KO me if I try to go for Rocks or S-Toss, something like that. It's taking the hit points when I was down to, not a good range. I'm not going to fault myself for that, certainly. But incoming knockoff is obvious, and I decide to go into Zapdos. If something's going to get knocked off, I probably want it to be my 2 legendaries, and I value the lefties on Suicune much more, as that's his only form of recovery, whereas Zapdos, of course, does have a Roost. However, we are just going to double switch here. He's faster than me, so that's why he switched first, as we get to see that right there. And now we've got Hitmontop versus Rhyperior. He doesn't like the matchup, to be honest. I don't either. So I'm actually going to switch out as well, which I guess means that Rhyperior is actually faster than Hitmontop, which is kind of funny, but I guess that means he likely is Jolly Max Speed. So now I've got Chansey versus Slowbro. So after 2 double switches, I finally got a switch that's going to be really alright for me. He could, he's got Psyshock, so he could set up Calm Minds and do that. But I'm going to definitely take this turn to set up Stealth Rock. And yeah, now I've got Rocks up, so Crobat's going to have to come out at some point and defog those if it even packs it. We're just going to go immediately on the top man. It's going to be the best thing to deal with this Bisharp, as it is going to outspeed Zapdos. Zapdos can take any one hit, but I can't switch it in and then expect to live. So crit knockoff gets rid of my item, and thief would have been tempting to steal Slowbro's item or something. But I just decided, we're just going to play this safe. His biggest threat is definitely Bisharp, so we're just going to Mach Punch, and that is what we do. And go back into Gregor, which incoming Toxic is obvious. That's what happened last time. He's just going to Psyshock and make sure I leave, which is fine. And here, I think, Toxic is so obvious. Maybe he's going to want to go into either Rotom Cut, which is already Toxic, or Crobat, which is immune from Toxic, and that's why I go for Ice Beam, as he goes for Calm Mind. And alright, I'm going to Toxic this turn. At least now if he switches out, he kind of wasted a Calm Mind. So I do indeed get him Toxic, and he's going to slack off, get back up to full HP. But I'm also back to full HP myself with leftovers, so he's going to be losing HP for... Oh, that's weird. Anyway, so I'm just going to Protect here in case he wants to go for hits. I figure what he's going to want to do is, he's got the one Calm Mind, he's Toxic now. He's going to want to, get off some damage and then get out of there, get Regenerator going on, abuse Regenerator and make sure this Toxic, not stay in for too long so it doesn't rack up too much. And, at some point just get out of there, do some damage, get out. Stop the Toxic from hurting too much, get Regenerator, that sort of thing. So that's kind of where I think he's going to be at. So I just Scald for extra stab, as it appears he's going to be staying in. And he Psyshocks, and he could definitely very well slack off this turn. But I think I'm going to go ahead. I think I Protect here. I'm pretty sure there was a double Protect there. I kind of glossed over it all. But I'm pretty sure at some point I did get a double Protect off. And momentarily I think I'm going to end up going for another double Protect, which could potentially be useful while this Toxic Stall is going on. So again, I'm just Ice Beaming because the reason I'm Ice Beaming more than I'm Surfing is because Scalding is because I feel like Rotom Cut or Crobat might want to come in. It's just what I feel. Mostly Rotom Cut. I don't want it to get in for free, so I Protect as he slacks off, and I potentially, depending on damage variation, I think he had, 8% there, maybe could have killed him with Scald, but here I go for another double Protect, which would have been big if I had hit that one, as he looks like he's going to die to Toxic here, assuming he doesn't go for Slack Off, which he does not, and instead Gregor's down to well under half. And but Slowbro is down, and that's one of the check marks for getting a Slurpuff Sweep off, so certainly glad to see that. Here, because of Stealth Rock, I felt alright going for Scald. I don't know why he dropped in Rhyperior. Maybe he thought it would be faster, but again, I made sure to, if it could have been faster, I was going to run some speed EVs to make sure it was faster, because that Jolly Max Speed Rock Polish Rhyperior was definitely on my mind. So that works out tremendously. We get back-to-back KOs, and momentum definitely shifts in my side. Just going to Protect, again, get some more HP back, get back up to close to half, as well as get some toxic damage on him. And then it's going to be right back out into... I could actually go into Chansey, but I go back into Dose, which is going to be able to live the Volt Switch. However, he does go for Will-O-Wisp instead, which is intriguing. And ends up to miss it on top of that, so just insult to injury. And here I make a boo-boo, the weird speeds that are going on. I just assume that he's going to be faster for some reason. I didn't have lefties because they were knocked off, so we didn't get to see the leftovers animation. I figured because he's got lefties, he's got to be bulky, so he's probably not running much of any speed. And I discharge into it, which is absolutely useless. And, should have been an HP Ice, or really should have just been a Roost, is what it should have been. I just wanted to get a discharge off on something that switched in after living a Volt Switch, which obviously did not happen. So Crobat kills Zapdos with Cross Poison, which is nice that I see it, and there was another mistake, so I'm kind of really blowing my lead right here. The reason that was a big mistake was that on the first turn you Mega, I complain about, I don't like to Mega Protect. And I certainly wouldn't have Protect over Sub for this because of the potential with Bisharp. But there I realized, I think I actually clicked the move and I was like, wait, no, I'm not faster even if I go Mega because of the way the Mega speed rules work. So I was actually expecting U-turn there. Stuff has kind of gone by too quick, but I was expecting U-turn, which even if I was faster would break my Sub and then I'd be in a bad spot. But anyway, so right there I drop in Gregor after top man goes down to a Brave Bird. And I'm able to nail Rotom Cut on the switch in with an Ice Beam, which also would have been super effective against Crobat. So Rotom Cut is definitely his most offensive thing against Suicune for sure. So, you know, once again, we're just going to protect, and Kuhn's back up above 50%. It's, you know, not exactly the healthiest in the world, but he's at low HP. So, at this point, I figure he's going for Leaf Storm at this point. Let's go into Chansey, which is going to just eat a Leaf Storm up, and then can potentially Seismic Toss him, or, you know, I don't need to set up rocks again. I'm actually just going to go ahead and go for Soft Boil this turn and let Toxic kill him. That's going to be my plan. Cooper, you are stupid and did not see Pain Split coming at all. Thankfully, though, so all my work trying to get that Rotom Cut whittled down with Ice Beams and whatnot kind of just kicked in the can right there. But fortunately, we did Soft Boil that turn, so that means we're back up close to full. He doesn't have much to do to actually kill Chansey, thankfully, so he's actually going to Volt Switch out. But that was kind of nice because it meant that I didn't have to Soft Boil this turn, which would have been telegraphed. Instead, we get the Seismic Toss, and Crobat goes down to under 33%. And right here, if this was 4th gen and I was playing Makar, I would have expected Taunt and would not have T-Waved, but it's not 4th gen and I'm not playing Makar. So, you know, discarding some of the knowledge and the ingrained from 4th gen as I go T-Wave and get a nice paralysis on this Mienshao, and this is going to prove to be absolutely huge. Looking at the rest of his team, because he's shown me Will-O-Wisp, I cannot set up on Rotom Cut. I obviously can't set up on Bisharp with Slurpuff because of Iron Head, and he also has Cross Poison with Crobat, which is going to do way too much. So Mienshao is actually the only thing that I might be able to set up on with Slurpuff, and because of that, I kind of need something to die to it, and right now Chansey seems to be a pretty decent option. So yeah, right here again, I'm going to T-Wave as he just sacrifices Crobat to Brave Bird, and to his own Brave Bird recoil, so nobody on my side gets that kill. I tried to T-Wave, you know, I guess should have Soft Boiled, but I suppose I didn't want him to roost. Still thinking a little bit on that. Thankfully for me, though, he goes into Mienshao instead of Bisharp. Bisharp, I'm pretty sure, would have been well better, because if I can get this thing to die to Mienshao, which is exactly what happens right there. This is the scenario that there was one turn where I could have S-tossed, but I didn't want to S-toss because I need this thing alive for potential setup fodder. He could very well have Poison Jab, but 25% chance here. Do we get it? Do we get it? Do we get it? 25% chance to win? We got it. Alternately, if he didn't have Poison Jab, he could have missed the Stone Edge, but there we go. We got the 25% chance to win the game, and it looks like we're going to be able to win the game barring a Play Rough miss on Bisharp. Had this not worked, I didn't feel like it was actually that risky of a play. Reason being because, as here's the moment of truth with the Play Rough, which is going to connect and take out the Bisharp, and then Rotom Cut will go down to return. I didn't actually feel it was that risky because that was going to be my only chance to maybe do anything with Slurpuff. So if it failed, then, you know, it was going to come down to Kuhn versus Zam. There's, depending on how stuff went down, depending on a lot of his EV spreads, there's a chance I could have pulled it out, especially with that Mienshao being paralyzed. Trying to think how this would have all boiled down. I probably, you know, assuming Poison Jab had killed, or, you know, stuff like that, I could have, I guess, come in with Suicune, probably just killed the Mienshao, and then we've got to deal with Rotom Cut, at which point I probably have to get out of there and go into Zam, who is not going to enjoy a Leaf Storm. I don't know how much special attack he has. I need to be able to sub in order to potentially deal with Bisharp. It would have been really messy. I didn't actually get to ask him if he had Poison Jab or not. I guess he'll probably mention it on his side, certainly. So definitely go check his out. That's going to be the game. It's going to be a 3-0 in our favor. I did not expect to actually win this on the rematch. As you know, rematch syndrome, as I like to call it. Usually the guy who's got the lead going into the DC, it's kind of like having to do a rematch. You know, the guy who won before, you know, oh, he did everything right. Whereas the guy who was behind or lost, you know, is able to better recognize what they did wrong and correct those mistakes. So I definitely felt very fortunate. Obviously, 25% chance is the main reason we were able to pull it out this week. And yeah, it's going to wrap it up with a 3-0 victory. So we're going to move to 3-4, one game off 500. As for Pokemon of the Week, once again, this week we had a sweep to close out the game. Last week I gave it to the sweeper. This week, though, the sweep had a 75% chance of doing absolutely nothing. At least last week, you know, despite only happening because of the overheat miss, Cloyster would have at least been able to take out Rotom Heat. This week, however, had that paralysis not happened, and he had Poison Jab. Very real chance that we get absolutely nothing out of Slurpuff. And so instead, we're going to give it to a more well-rounded contribution out of Suicune. The sweep does not happen if Slowbro and Rhyperior are healthy, and he was the one who took out both of those. Granted, they only need to be at, you know, lower HP for it to happen, but, you know, he was able to just take them completely out. Slowbro absolutely was a threat. You know, a lot of my offense was on the special side. We had, what, Hitmontop, Thief, and I guess Slurpuff could have done a stab play rough. Not exactly the best way I want to use those things. And so just kind of a textbook toxic stall. He kept it in. You know, I kept firing off Ice Beams just in case he wanted to cut his losses and get out, but he never did. Just wanted to get as much damage on the Coon as possible. And Toxic Protect, Leftovers kind of all worked together and did what they were supposed to do. And then, of course, the very curious play where he just dropped in Rhyperior on the free drop. I don't know if that was a misclick or thought he'd be faster or what it was going to be. But certainly, you know, able to take that out in one shot. And I'm still kicking myself for that bad calc where I had max HP put in there when very obviously it was offensive. Should have just had max attack, max speed. There, in all likelihood, the doomsday scenario of, you know, it's going to live a scald, not get burned, and get weakness policy was just a figment of my imagination. So I'm still kicking myself for that. That's something I should have picked up on and corrected as a coach. But, you know, was able to clear the way for the sweep, so that's where we're going to get to Suicune this week. Good job, Gregor. You've earned yourself some honors. Looking ahead to next week, it's a formidable opponent that awaits us as we go back to Salt Lake and go out of conference and play the Milwaukee Sawsbucks. The Knish himself, Magnitude's coming to town. And, you know, we started the season with 3 straight out-of-conference games and proceeded to lose all 3. But since then, we've gone 3-1 in the Johto Conference. So, you know, that's something to smile about, I guess. Still with a losing record at 3-4. The Sawsbucks getting to 4-3 this week after a big win over the #1 team in the league, and so they're going to be riding high after that one. And you know, what a huge turnaround for the Sawsbucks this year after winning the first game and then losing the last 9, having a huge draft, strengthening their team, picking up 5 legendaries, which you know, of course we know doesn't actually mean anything, but it's just kind of funny to point out. So. You know, out of conference games, so it doesn't quite matter as much as we're not in direct competition for a playoff spot. But you know, we want to try to roll off as many games as we can. And you know, I'm not going to spoil any individual results, but definitely some shake-up towards the top of the league this week. And there's definitely some room to be moving up. So you know, I'd say we've definitely put some distance between ourselves and the bottom now. So I'd say we're definitely in the hunt and vying for those one of those top 3 spots. And, you know, we still got a chance to make the playoffs, so we keep playing all right. Hopefully we can do that. You know, of course, I would like to finish with at least an even record. And if we do that and maybe do a little bit more than that, hopefully we can get into the playoffs as well. Alright, that's going to just about wrap it up. Once again, go check out Nexus's channel. At the very least, if you haven't already, go watch his side of the battle. Like I mentioned at the start of the video, he makes me laugh every week, so should be some good entertainment. I think definitely worth your time. You know, this week and last week, disconnects. Hate him. Last week, at least, John and I were able to, you know, get our game state back and do that. This week, with a fresh start, I left a really sour feeling in my mouth. It wasn't as bad as Deoxys Sawsbucks, where they had, I think, at least 3. But it was, you know, the whole rematch factor thing. Definitely just feel lucky to be able to walk away with a victory this week. And I'm going to be certainly investigating any issues that are causing that from my end, and hopefully we won't have any more going forward. But yeah, I know Nexus, he's been taking a lot of flack for not preparing as well as he should. I think he made some steps toward correcting that this week. That Rock Blast Rhyperior definitely threw me for a loop. You know, that was a great read, knowing that you know, I like to run Subroost Zapdos in some shape or form. And, you know, weakness policy to block out the HP Ice, and Rock Blast has more PP, because I like the PP stall, than Stone Edge, and, you know, it can get around subs. It's just unfortunate that he only got, at most, I believe, 3 Rock Blasts off. He never got the 4 or 5. So, you know, some bad luck in as far as that goes. And certainly, of course, the para hacks to seal the deal on the belly drum sweep. So, you know, he's definitely had some hacks not go his way. But I think he can get some more wins. I'm thinking at least 2 more wins. No one's actually out of the playoffs yet, so, you know, he can still make the playoffs. But, you know, certainly his team is not the best, but he's definitely got some threats in there. So I still wouldn't take him lightly. Maybe he just needs a good trade or two to, you know, really be a threatening team. Or if not, then, you know, maybe you can get some good draft picks next year. But that's going to about wrap it up. So see you guys next week for our game with Steve. See if we can peel off a win then. Later days.